Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Rebecca Anand. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Infinite Learning. Welcome to today's webinar. We're delighted to welcome Nik Bernaz, who's very generously and kindly given of his time to talk to you today about changing the dynamics of the language classroom. Now, as an ex-language teacher myself, I'm very much looking forward to this, as I'm sure you are. There's lots of familiar faces, or names I should say, at this stage. I can see Reese is there. Hi Reese, how are you? And thanks to all of you for joining us. The format of today's webinar will be Nik presenting to you some thoughts and ideas. At the moment, everyone is on mute with their microphones off and cameras off, but we're quite a small group at the moment, so we'll perhaps open that up at the end. And certainly there's an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. There is a chat box, so you can put any questions in there if something occurs to you as we go along, or we can just open it to the floor at the end of that session. Other questions that often come up, yes, there's a certificate of attendance which will be sent out tomorrow, along with a video recording of the session. So if you've missed something, or you have a colleague that might be interested, you can share that as well. I think that's all from me for now. I think Nik's also got a couple of handouts that he's going to share with me, and we'll pass those on to you as well. So Nik, I'll allow you to introduce yourself. Obviously, you have a wealth of experience, and I think importantly, passion as well, and I'm sure we're going to see a little bit of that today. So over to you, and thanks everyone.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon. COVID-19, bats, blended learning. What do all of these have in common? I am Nik Bernaz, and today I would like to explore with you what blended learning can do for your student as a driver for motivation. How it can reignite the flame that they once had as children to discover exciting new things, and as a result, level up. I would like to thank Infinite Learning for giving me the chance to speak today and share my story with you. In this webinar, I will explain what I did to change the dynamics of my classroom and to make it a better and happier place to learn. I hope that you too will get some great ideas for your own classroom. I'm very excited to have you joining me today, so thank you. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to talk about. Again, thank you for giving some of your time to listen to me. I hope that you will enjoy this webinar. And I really don't want to sound like I'm lecturing you, so if at any time you have an idea or comment, please type it in the chat box, and then we will explore it together at the end. One last thing before we start, I'd like to call it disclosure. About 1 year ago, I created a website called Frenchu.com because I wanted my students to make the most of their time away from school. Little by little, and with a lot of generous encouragement, Frenchu has grown into what it is today. I will use its story to show you how I had one of these wow moments that I knew I had to share with others. There is nothing more to it. I don't want to sell you anything. If you want to try Frenchu for yourself, drop me a mail and I will give you free access. COVID-19 has changed the face of education forever. With the rise of remote learning, teachers like you and me had to adapt to the new normal. The idea behind blended learning is simple. Student benefits from doing part of their learning in a digital environment. Of course, blended learning is not a substitute for teachers, just another amazing tool for them. Many students learn best independently, and this learning is reinforced by in-person interactions. Blended learning is just perfect for them. We all know that many students have got gaps in their knowledge from the previous years. And for us teachers, it's often impossible to fill all these gaps. Grammar in French is a good example of this because it's so time consuming that we either have to rush it or overlook it. Who has the time to revise masculine and feminine in year 10? A show of hands. Blended learning is an obvious solution to this. So just as a refresher, I'd like to show you what study.com identified as the 6 basic blended learning models. The first one, the face-to-face driver model, is where teachers use the blended learning to give students who are struggling addition to traditional learning. The rotation model, number 2, is where students rotate from learning with the teachers to learning online.
Nick, sorry, this is Rebecca. I'm just going to interrupt very quickly. I'm not sure if you think you're sharing your screen, but there's no slides up at the moment. We can't see.
I'm sorry.
So I think perhaps...
I'm sorry.
No problem. Just before we carry on, you just need to share your screen and then you'll be able to see to what you're referring.
Is that the one?
So if you go to the control panel and then the sharing.
It says there is no presenter.
Okay, let me make you the presenter. There we are. So now you should be able to share your screen. I don't know why you were not presenter because you were previously. Sorry, everyone. Technical hitch. There we go. Thank you.
I'll start again at this slide.
Yeah, you maybe just want to put it into slideshow mode. So it's the full screen. Yeah. Perfect.
Is that? Yeah.
Okay, yes, wonderful. Glad we're back on track. Okay, over to you again.
Thank you. So number 1 is the face-to-face driver model, and this is where the teacher uses blended learning to give students who are struggling with a particular concept additional learning outside the lesson. Number 2 is the rotation model, where students rotate from learning with the teacher and learning online. The third one, the flex model, delivers most of the content online, and the teacher is more of a facilitator, ready to provide one-to-one or small group help when it's needed. The online lab model, number 4, has no teacher present, and all the learning takes place remotely, usually when resources are limited or in rural areas like in the countryside. Number 5, the self-blend model. In this model, the students supplement what they're learning in school with a la carte learning powered by big MOOCs like edX or Coursera or Udemy. And finally, the online driver model relies on technology as the primary means of delivering the course material. All the instruction takes place remotely, and teachers are just there for guidance. And this model, I think, offers amazing flexibility because it gives tailored learning for each individual student. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our story here in my school. First of all, we use mainly the face-to-face and the rotation model before the big lockdown. We then moved to the online driver model for a bit when opening the school was not an option. We then shifted to the flex model when we went back to school with a limited number of students who were rotating it each week. I think that blended learning works really well with modern languages because it can mimic the natural way that we learn a language. When children communicate in their mother tongue, they're blending their learning too. They learn from play, they learn from talking with other children, and they learn from asking their parents some questions, sometimes too many questions. If learning a language is so natural for everyone, why do we language teachers have got so many students struggling in our lessons? I think that many students give up learning a modern language because at some point they hit a hurdle that makes them think, this is not for me. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly why they come to this conclusion, but I really like the explanation of Robert Greene, who says that whenever we learn something new, we frequently reach a point of frustration. What we are learning seems to be beyond our reach. Getting into those feelings, we unconsciously quit on ourselves before we actually give up. I found that the students who succeed remember the sensation of overcoming past frustration and rising to the challenge, and those who don't succeed tend to forget these feelings. So successful students trust the process and carry on way past the point where the others slow down or mentally quit. So my role as a teacher is to help every student overcome giving up and getting them back on track to success. And one of the things that I've learned in my research is that it's very important to focus on the process and not the outcomes, because the process is something that we can always control. whereas the outcomes not. Let me give you an example. If you want to go to Paris, or in fact anywhere in the world, the safest way to travel is by plane. Planes are 19 times safer than cars. You can choose to either take the plane or go by car. This is the process. Now, if unfortunately the plane crashes, then the outcome is bad, but it's totally beyond your control. Most of the time, choosing the right process ensures the right outcome. Equally, winning the national lottery is a great outcome, but the statistics show that the process is wrong because the chance of winning are very, very slim. In fact, you're 14 times more likely to experience a plane crash than winning the lottery, which I'm sure it's an important fact that you will take away with you from this webinar. I had to do the research for that. So I invite you to read the many blog posts that I put about that, about the process being the most important thing, and we can forget the outcome. I'll come back to that in a minute. Individual blended learning gives us a tool to tailor the task to the students and ensuring that everybody can succeed. Because after all, we cannot run before we learn how to walk. Sometimes we need to pace ourselves, and time is the magic ingredient here. How long it takes to get there is no longer important because everybody learning at their own pace. When we see the bigger picture, we understand that emotions like boredom, panic, frustration, or insecurity are part of the journey. If we trust the process, those emotions are no longer a hindrance to learning. In fact, I'll go as far as saying that they are indicators that you're on the right track, that we're onto something. You know, when you feel this little fear in your stomach, that's an indicator that you're onto something good. Not necessarily something you want. We have to trust the process. So how do we go on about restoring the confidence that we all had when we were children? The confidence to ask questions, the confidence to try something that might not work, and the confidence to show vulnerability. I often joke with my students that their knowledge of French grammar is like a mental cheese. Each piece has got a different piece. Everyone has got a different piece with hole in different places. It makes it very difficult for us teachers to patch them all. But we can patch those holes with individuals learning. Part of my experience to restore confidence was to build Frenchy.com, focusing on small victories. I chose to take a micro-learning approach because it breaks content into small and easy to consume bits. Micro-learning focuses on helping students achieve just one objective, usually in 5 minutes or less. It's easier to take on and easier to get through, giving them an immediate sense of achievement. While it's not meant to provide comprehensive or detailed learning experience, micro-learning's targeted focus helps users to absorb, retain, and recall information better than longer format does. French is also based on an empirical approach to grammar. So I identified what makes the foundation of French grammar, and then I gradually build progress into the course using that. Each unit has got a minimum of 3 parts. At the top, you can see 8.1. It's a short lesson that usually matches the level of the student. In the middle of the lesson, there's a mini test, and students can skip this test after 2 attempts to check their understanding. 8.2 is an assessment that the students can take as many times as they want to improve their score if they want. And number 3 is the grammar notes from the lesson in a PDF format that students can download. I save mine in their OneNote or in Google Docs. This way, they can fully concentrate on their learning without to worry about taking notes. A course on French is made of 12 units that, when completed, gives access to a certificate issued by the site. This certificate is a recognition of the effort and the commitment of the students. And I saw that it was making a huge difference to my students, because for some kids, it was the first time they actually got some recognition in French. It's just a PDF, it doesn't really matter, but for them it meant a lot. Now, it's all very good, but the question is, does it work? And that's probably why you're here today. And I took a screenshot on the 19th of August, and there were 8 students online at the time, so that was during the school holidays. 3 of the students, that's the blue line at the bottom, completed the course a few days ago. I'd say that French will work way beyond my expectations. I talked to the students in school and they told me that they were enjoying it because they were helping them reconnect with the joy of learning and restoring the confidence that they once had. But there's a caveat though. For French or for any other blended learning tool to work, we need to change the culture of the classroom when no one can be left behind. And this is much easier said than done. People like us to think like this is a phrase that I borrowed from Sir Godin, and that means exactly that. The French class is a place we're all working towards the same common goal, reconnecting with the joy of learning and a sense of achievement. It takes a lot of encouragement from the teacher's side, praise and convincing for everyone in the class to have a go. And this is probably the hardest part of the process, except that I found that student simulation was very, very strong with this. And I've seen that happening with Duolingo as well. I'll talk about that in a little while. The early adopters soon managed to convince the early and late majorities to follow. And then very, very soon, we were left with 1 or 2 people that were not quite ready to follow. And the funny thing is that those 2 people that were not quite ready to follow, once they followed, they overtook the rest of the cohort because suddenly it was talking to them. So one important thing we need to understand is what drives decision. And in Thinking Fast or Slow, Daniel Kahneman explains that emotions are the root of every decision. If you understand the emotional driver of your audience, you will be able to deliver your message successfully. Theodore Levitt said that people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill, they want a quarter-inch draw. But I'd like to take it a bit further with you. I don't even think that people want a hole. They want to fix some shelves, probably. And you know, I don't even think that people are interested in shelves because people want to remove the clutter from their house. Why would they want to do that? I think that people want to do that because they want to impress their friends or their relatives, their partners with a job well done. So in the end, people buy a drill bit because they want to feel good about themselves, because they want status. A lot of things we do in life are related to status. Why do you think that people buy iPhones, Nike shoes, or Lexus cars? This is what Seth taught me, to look beyond the obvious, to try to see the bigger picture, to go back to my teaching and then to reflect and make it better. So let me ask you a question now. Why do people learn French? I asked this question to my student, and no, the answer is not to get a better mark in the test. It's not about ending up in a top set, and it's not about going to a good university or having more opportunities in life because you can speak a foreign language. People learn French because they want to be able to speak the language, to communicate, to relate with other people. They learn French because they want to be challenged, because they want to overcome difficulty, and because they want to make a success. They want to be recognized. They want to increase their status. This is why we learn French. Once we understand this, I think things are becoming clearer. My job as a French teacher is to help my students connect and communicate, getting the recognition as someone who can make a contribution. Every single one of them. When I understand their emotion, I can frame the benefits in a language that can resonate with my audience, and we can change the culture. And to change the culture, I think it's really crucial that we understand this. We need to find customers for our products, but not products for our customers. And I know this sounds very, very markety, but this is true. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about this. Are we really doing this all the time? I know that sometimes I'm not. We lose track of why we're doing things. We lose focus and all of this because we're looking at the world through a specific type of lenses. Now let's get on to the bats. What do you see now? And now, this is the same picture rotated 180 180 degrees, but it tells a completely different story, doesn't it? I think all we need as teachers is a little rotation, a little shift in focus. What we need is to use blended learning to reframe what we consider a success. By now, you understand that French.com is not the only possible solution to your problems. There are many alternatives that work equally well at talking to your students' emotion and give them the chance to succeed again. The key for me was to give some tasks that were short, but I introduced commitment and consistently good learning habits. 5 minutes a day can teach you a language. What can 15 minutes of social media do? Well, fair point, Duolingo. We'll start with you. Who doesn't know Duolingo? I've used it for the last month to polish up my Spanish. I managed to get a 70-day streak. Why the progression is not fast enough for me? Once you install the app, you start to get some daily nagging reminders that others are overtaking you and that you need to do a bit of work to keep your daily streak. What I really like about Duolingo is the possibility to add friends, people that you can follow and people that give each other some encouragement. And this without the possibility to type a message. So all the communications are positive by design. And recently, after reading Daniel Kahneman's book, I came to the conclusion that Duolingo trains what Daniel Kahneman calls System 1, the emotional intuitive system that makes us instantly understand other people. So I'll give you a quick example with this picture. And if I ask you, what do you see and what's going to happen next? A lot of people will say, well, that woman looks very angry and she's going to shout. And this is talking to your System 1 according to Kahneman. Now, Duolingo, with enough practice, also talks to your System 1 because everything that you do becomes an automatism. You will see the words, you will see what looks right, and will see what looks wrong. And so will your student. And in year 7 and in year 8, I use Duolingo a lot because a lot of the students do not understand how to build sentences. Give them 30 days, 40 days of Duolingo, and that's something of the past. That unleashes their performance. So through Duolingo, I managed to develop this feel for what looks right and what looks wrong through constant reshuffling and reordering of what I had learned before. This is a very natural way of picking up a first language for kids. Try it, give it a go. They just revamped the Duolingo for School section about a couple of weeks ago. Duolingo could be a very good starting point for your students in a flex blended learning model as a supplement to what you teach in school and when the pace can be finely tuned to them. The second tool that I have is Memrise, and Memrise is a great tool to engage your student to build up a lot of vocab very quickly. I used it successfully in the past when I needed to develop my Russian vocab very fast. Think of Memrise as a binge learning vocab. The greatest feature is that you can find the course that you're teaching. So I know they have Dynamo, I know they have Studio, they have Viva, they have all the main courses split by units, and sometimes you can sometimes you can also find the audio for the course. So it's some listening exercise, and that helps the kid build up the vocab really quickly. It's very different from Duolingo in the sense that Memrise builds a lot of vocab very quickly, whereas Duolingo likes to reinforce that vocab. With Memrise, some of your blended learning will immediately supplement what you're studying in class. You can create your own classes and monitor them in the free version, and that's an ideal sidekick to your normal lessons and helps you keep an eye on your students' progress. Using Memrise like this would be the self-blend learning model, where Memrise complements what you deliver in school and expands on your students' vocab. Did you know that if you change the language in your profile on your PC, Netflix or Amazon Prime will select the relevant movies in that language? There are many great series to watch in French or in Spanish, such as Lupin or La Casa de Papel, or Good Doctor, or Moi Moche Méchant, which is Despicable Me in French. You can then combine the subtitles in different ways and tackle some different skills. Now, the combination of languages and subtitles are not that crucial. I think what matters here is that students recognize with the enjoyment of rediscovering some of the words of expression that they've learned before, and they will be amazed at the amount of French they already know. Netflix provides extension activities to classic in-person learning. Look around you. There are hundreds of other tools out there that can be used for blended learning. Blended learning can help us rediscover the beauty and the excitement of learning to become a full and well-rounded person. Let it not be replaced little by superficial activities that merely distract us and steal our time. In this age of infobesity, so many distractions prevent us from fulfilling our potential as human beings. Kids on their tablets, adults on their phone are starting to forget what the beauty of learning something new looks like. A growing feeling of helplessness, of not knowing when to start, has paradoxically made the turn of the century the only time in human history when we have so much at our disposal and yet not enough time to explore everything. It is our duty as teachers to help our students set time aside for their own personal growth. And blended learning is the ideal tool for that. From the grammar-based Frenchu.com, I created more content for my students that I know they will enjoy reading. I'm posting French expression and their literal translation into English on Twitter, Insta, and Facebook every day. And last week I started something new called Did the French Really Invent That?, which teaches you new vocab words every day through very, very short reading bits. Rather than trying to fight the social networks, I use them every day to get my message across. I also started a blog where I'm posting the tips and tricks for leveling up in French, and I'm always investigating new ways to create enticing contents to encourage people to find different ways to enjoy their learning journey. Because it's all about the journey. The destination will take care of itself. Lao Tzu said it himself, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. As this webinar comes to an end, please allow me to quickly review what I talked about. The great thing about blending learning is that it gives us a teacher a new perspective on things and gives our students the responsibility for their learning. Because students can progress at their own pace, they are less likely to compare themselves to each other and then increase their own motivation. Focusing on the process and not the outcomes gives immediate positive results and does not push success beyond the cognitive horizon. As emotions are the main human drivers, we must learn not to underestimate them. Small manageable bits could be the answer to some of your students' problems. Recognition along the way is an extremely strong motivator for everyone. Status is an important factor when we make decisions. Learning habits can be changed in order to raise achievements. And finally, picking up the right blending learning tool does not matter as much as what you decide to do with it. So I hope that you find this webinar informative and that will give you some ideas to try it in your classroom. Thank you for listening to me.
Nik, thank you so much for an extremely thought-provoking webinar. I mean, I would say much of what you said there goes way beyond the language classroom, and actually there's lots of lessons for life in what you said there. So thank you so much. I particularly liked the analogy of the Emmentaler French grammar. I do recall spending most of my break times bringing students back for retests because they perhaps hadn't revised their irregular verbs as they should have. So that one really really touched me. And wow, what amazing resources there are out there, and actually your very own Frenchu in particular. You must have spent so many hours on that, and it's very, very generous of you to share that that platform with your colleagues. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure there'll be lots of people interested in taking a closer look. You know, I think when you talked about all the Memrise and Duolingo, certainly these things did not exist when I was teaching French too many years ago now than I care to remember. But as you say, we've got so many opportunities now, and we've all learnt so much in this last year that surely there's a way of really maximising those opportunities to the benefit of our students. It remains, it seems, a difficult subject sometimes to gain enthusiasm from students. We were just talking before the webinar went live that Nik was actually my eldest son's French teacher at Dubai College. It wasn't his favourite subject, but Mr. Bernaz was one of his favourite teachers, and I think you can see that passion and enthusiasm there. So thank you for sharing some of that with us today. I can't see any questions in the chat area, but what I'd like to do, if everyone is in agreement, is that I'm going to unmute everybody. And if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask away. I'm trying to unmute all participants. Yes. Okay, you can unmute yourselves if you've got any questions, or if you would prefer to type them into the chat box, you can do that as well.
Thank you for your generous comments, Rebecca, and thank you. They go straight to my heart.
Oh, you're most welcome, and they are from the heart and absolutely genuine. My son is back here in the UK at the moment, settling into a new school, which is why I'm here in England myself. But they very, very much talks about French lessons with you with fond memories. Any questions?
Hi, Rebecca. Can you hear me? It's Reese here.
Oh, so hi, Reese. Yeah, absolutely.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Nik, for a brilliant presentation. I really enjoyed the theory behind it as well. And I agree with what Rebecca said. We're so lucky now as languages teachers to have just so many, like websites and software and ideas to use in the classroom. But one thing I found during distance learning that I noticed last year when we came back with our students is, I'm sure everyone will agree with this, is how speaking skills had been so neglected away from the classroom. So really my question is just, is there anything out there, ideas or techniques or websites that you feel, Nik, that are really beneficial in continuing to improve their speaking skills outside of the classroom? Is there anything?
I think it's a very important point that you're making here. And when I learned Spanish from scratch 2 months ago, I used Duolingo, and there's a lot of speaking on Duolingo. There is speaking as part of the lessons. The listening and the reading is wonderful in the little story. Have you used Duolingo before?
Yeah, do you know what? I did previously a few years ago, and I think it was 2016. My brother got married in Italy, and I wanted to turn up to his wedding. And I'm a Spanish teacher, and really, show off with my Italian. So I was hammering in Duolingo then myself. But at that point, I don't think the speaking was that far advanced. So maybe I need to look into it definitely again.
The speech recognition is quite impressive.
Right.
It will look for the right intonation and pronunciation, and it will ask you to read quite long sentences as well.
Okay.
I think in the last 2 years it's gone a long way. The app on the phone is amazing because you carry it with you and you can do it even if there's some background noise. It will pick it up for you. So that's what I've said to my year 7. Do Duolingo, because that will give you the kickstart, that will give you the confidence that you need right at the beginning.
Right. And I don't suppose, are you able to hear some of their speaking that they do? With this Duolingo classroom, I think you said that it's come on. Are we as teachers able to hear some of the stuff that they do at home, or I don't?
What I like to do with my students is to give them the responsibility to do it. So what we do every week with Duolingo is with the year 7 and the year 8, at the beginning of the week or at the end of the week, we review the XP. So let's say they got 500 XP, some kids got 300 XP, and for every 100 XP that they get a chance to spin the wheel and get 1 merit, and they love it. But I'm not going to go as far as going into what they say. And that's pretty much, because it's blended, that's pretty much what they want to do, and they can pretty much pursue what they like to do. It's not for me, as long as they do something that they like, because that's what matters, to find something that they like so that they do it even more and they get better at it. You can't set tasks on Duolingo, you can't set speaking tasks on Duolingo, you can't set work as teachers, but you can create a class, you can look at the class progress, and the motivation is unbelievable. Sorry, carry on.
I suppose as you've said, well, Duolingo's, it's more advanced now, so it kind of does it for them, doesn't it? If they're pronouncing something wrong, then as you say, it shows up until they improve. So it's kind of doing that job for you anyway, isn't it? Yeah. Okay,
and
great.
in the reading, in the reading, they've got little stories. I don't know if you remember that, but they've got little stories. So they read the story to you, and then they stop and they put some gaps, and you've got to finish the story. And as you go on a bit later, they will ask questions about the story. So they start with true or false questions, and then it moves to some other questions in English, and then it starts with questions in Spanish. So now the questions for the reading are in Spanish. So the progression is there, and that keeps it interesting for them. It's not too repetitive. It's not like Active Learn, which is pretty much the same task over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've got Duolingo in my life, back in my life, and my students' lives. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thanks, Nick.
I'll add the link in the script that I will give to Rebecca, because the Duolingo for schools is not the normal Duolingo. It's called schools.d2.duolingo.com, something like that. It's not intuitive to get there, but when you're there, you can create a class, share the code with your kids, and see their progress.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Is that a free platform, Nick?
Yeah, it could be free, or you could pay for it. So if you do it on a PC, it's free. If you do it on the phone, it's quite limited. So as soon as you start to make some mistakes, then after a few mistakes, you've got to wait, or you've got to do some revision. If you pay for it, you're never limited. But for the kids, the free version is more than enough for them, and they can do it on their Surface Pro. Or,
I'm going to download it and brush up on my Spanish for my next trip to Mallorca. We've got one question. Sorry.
It gave me the confidence in 2 months to speak Spanish. I can make sentences in Spanish. I can speak Spanish as well as I speak Russian. So, and that's 2 months. And started, well, not from scratch because I speak French, but it's just unbelievable. The way it works on your brain is just unbelievable.
I'm absolutely fascinated. I'm going to definitely give that a go. Okay, we've got one question here from Mohammed. I'm not exactly sure if I understand it, but perhaps you will, Nick. What are instructions used in the blended learning? Mohammed, are you there? Are you able to expand on that? If you turn your unmute yourself. I'm not too clear on what that might mean. What are instructions used in the blended learning? I'm not too sure. Does that mean anything to you, Nick?
Well, I'd say what I said previously. Blended learning is like a side dish. It's an extra thing that you can do to develop some skills in your student that otherwise you wouldn't be able to develop in school. So the instructions, as I was explaining, Duolingo, I'm not so interested in the individual task of the student. It's more like a free-for-all. Do something, watch some movies on Netflix, do some memorize, do something, but gain something from it. And I think, in the system that we're in, where everything becomes rigid and everything becomes measured, that gives the kids a breath of fresh air to actually do something that they enjoy doing, something that is exciting for them.
Yeah, this, for me anyway, was always one of the challenges with language teaching and learning. That there was an element of with language acquisition where you actually have to sit down and learn vocabulary and verbs in order to be able to actually then construct a sentence fluently when you're trying to speak or write, or to be able to listen as well. So if there's a way of doing that where it becomes fun, and we know that kids like working with screens and they love things on laptops and they love anything that's kind of interactive in that way, You know, for me, it was a piece of paper, and you know, you cover one bit and then rehearse and so on. But if there's a way of doing it where they're almost learning despite themselves, and they're not aware that they're actually studying in the way that we traditionally used to have to, then that surely can only be a positive.
So you would remember, Rebecca, the irregular verbs in French. So you go to French U, I will give you some rules to learn the irregular verbs in French as rote learning. You go to Duolingo, they give you 0 rule, they just show you the verb, and then you've got to remember it. And if you remember it wrong, it will be marked wrong until you get it right. And as simple as that. So it's a lot more natural. I know my irregular Spanish verbs, yeah, without rote learning them. Just the way I start to learn Russian with my wife. So my wife speaks Russian, I speak Russian with her, and that's how I pick up the language, the natural way. Yeah. And Duolingo does that really, really well.
Oh, it's brilliant. I'm definitely going to have a look. I'm conscious that we're coming up to the end of our time slot. Are there any other burning questions from anyone? Don't be shy. Take this opportunity, or if you'd just like to share some thoughts on language learning in your own environment, we'd love to hear. We've got a little bit of time left. No?
Got, one last thing from me, Rebecca, sorry. Nick, I'm not a French teacher, but is it okay if I share French with a French teacher in my department? Or,
yeah? Of course.
All right, great.
Just send me an email, and then I'll make it happen for you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so if there's anything after this and you want to get in touch with Nick, you can send myself an email and we'll get that sorted for you. In any case, we'll be sending out tomorrow, as I said, there'll be a video recording of this along with a certificate of attendance and a short survey. If you could just find literally 2 or 3 questions about how you found the webinar. And I think, as I say, Nick's going to send me some information as well, which I will share with you. So if there's a follow-on from that, if there's anything else you need, just let us know and we'll put you in touch with Nick. And so I think over there it was 4:45 your time, 1:45 mine. So thank you so much again, Nick. It's been an absolute pleasure, very thought-provoking, as I say, on a level beyond just the language classroom. And thanks to everyone for attending. And we'll see you all at our next webinar. Thanks.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.